You're listening to Release Your Resistance with Bex Beltran, episode 49. Welcome to Release Your Resistance. This is Bex. The only reason why any of us don't have what we want in life is because of our own resistance. Right now, I'm learning how to recognize and release my resistance, and this podcast tells you how you can release your resistance so that you can live the exact life that you want. Let's get started. Are you a liar? Do you tell lies? Do you believe some lies? I am guilty of all three of those. I lie to myself frequently, and I frequently believe the lies I tell myself without question and without any further investigation. And I have noticed that some of the lies I tell myself and believe are holding me back completely unnecessarily. I like using the word lies for this, even though it is a little dramatic and judgy, and it's not necessary. For example, instead, this episode could easily be called Thoughts We Believe That Hold Us Back. But for some reason, that just doesn't have the same juiciness, the same zing. I also like thinking of all of these thoughts as lies because it is charged. It catches your attention and it puts you in a position to either defend the statement, like saying, no, it's the truth, it's not a lie, or noticing the statement is a lie and letting go of it. As I have been thinking about the lies that I tell myself, I've noticed a few that seem to pop up frequently for me, and until I consciously stopped to think about them, I really would just believe these lies without question, without any hesitation. So I am curious if these are lies you tell yourself too, or if you tell yourself other types of lies. One lie that I notice myself using frequently is, I will, I just haven't yet. This one is super sneaky because I'm kind of being compliant and rebellious at the same time. Instead of telling myself the full rebellious truth that I don't want to do this or I am not going to follow through on that, I tell myself I will and that I fully intend to. So, compliance points for me. But then I don't actually comply. I don't schedule it or make a plan to do it. I put it at the bottom of my priorities. So I get to feel good about myself for saying yes to myself, for being agreeable, for my intention to do it. And then I might not hold myself accountable when I don't do it because, after all, I still intend to. This lie reminds me of holding on to physical clutter in my house. I notice sometimes I hold on to things I don't really want or need and will probably never end up using and will most likely throw away eventually, I hope, but I keep holding on. This is what I'm doing with this to-do item I'm lying to myself about. What if, instead of lying to myself that I will eventually take care of it, what if I just got honest with myself that I am not going to do it and let go of it? Then I don't have to think about it anymore. I don't have to consider it again. It's out of my life, and I can focus on things I really do intend to take care of. And if this to-do item is something that I really, really do intend to take care of, instead of lying to myself that I'll do it eventually, I can just decide to do it today. I can put it on my calendar. I can hold myself accountable to just get it done, instead of dragging it along in my brain for weeks and months. Another lie I frequently tell myself comes up for the exact opposite situation when I do something I've told myself I won't do, like snacking or skipping a workout, staying up late, or eating food that's not healthy for me, and all the other things that fall along this same idea. when I've made the decision to follow the urge of my brain, my primitive brain, the pleasure-seeking part of my brain, I sometimes justify it by telling myself the lie that this won't matter. And then I really get creative in justifying how it won't really matter if I do this just this one time. Like when I choose to eat something that has flour or sugar in it. Even though I have decided I don't want flour and sugar because those substances cause a lot of inflammation and lead to other longer-term health problems, I tell myself, oh, this glazed orange cranberry scone full of flour and sugar won't matter because it's the first thing I'm eating today after my 18-hour intermittent fasting period. So that means my body has cleaned out all the glycogen from my system and it won't store this as fat. It will burn it. By the way, I don't really believe that. That is very creative. I believe whenever my body gets sugar or flour, it switches to fat storing instead of fat burning. Plus, I already really know that flour and sugar in my body makes me feel physically terrible. But when I am faced with a choice like that, when the delicious orange cranberry scone is calling to me, or when watching one more episode instead of going to bed seems so tempting, I do hear myself thinking, oh, this won't matter. That's a lie. It really does matter. Another alternate lie, similar but different to the this won't matter lie, is when I tell myself, this is a big deal, with that exaggerated voice, when it's not actually that big of a deal. No one else thinks it's a big deal, but here's my brain telling me that showing up late to something is a huge problem. And it's the end of the world. Or not having a nice hostess gift if I go to someone's house will be the biggest insult ever. What a big deal. Or if this podcast episode is not as good as my previous episode, it's a big deal. And I might as well just give up now and go eat an orange cranberry scone. It's so crazy how my brain can blow really minor things out of proportion and convince me that something that is inconsequential in the big scheme is a big, scary, serious deal in this moment. And I frequently believe that lie. Believing that lie isn't helpful at all. I get why my brain is offering it to me, though. It's trying to protect me. My brain wants to keep me safe, conserve energy, and find pleasure. But what I am getting instead when I believe that lie is that I stay stuck. I hold myself back. I doubt myself, and I beat myself up for human mistakes. By lying to myself that something is a huge deal, like the quality of a podcast episode, I might get myself into an overthinking, overwhelmed cycle. And instead of just recording the episode and trusting that it will be as good as it will be, and that's perfect, I spend time thinking and wondering and worrying and coming up with the worst case scenarios. A bonus interruption here. If you are new to the podcast, or even if you are a longtime listener, I just name dropped 3 previous episodes in one idea. So if you're curious, you can go back and listen to the Nonsense Words episode to hear my take on the word perfect, and listen to the worst case, best case scenarios episode, and then hear how you can solve overthinking and overwhelm for yourself in the What Are You Over episode. Those episodes are all linked for you in the show notes for this episode at bexby.org/lies I tell. Okay, but back to the lies I tell myself. The opposite of thinking this is a big deal is believing something isn't worthy of any attention or praise. Sometimes, when I am paid a compliment, or when I notice that I've reached a goal, or I've created something, or I've accomplished something, sometimes I tell myself, that's not real, or that doesn't count. It's as if I am downplaying something that I would celebrate in someone else. But for me, in this moment, when I look at it or when someone else tells me about it, my brain says, but this accomplishment doesn't count. No need to feel proud. Or my brain might offer that this achievement isn't really an achievement. You just got lucky, or they just feel sorry for you. Sometimes my brain tells me, this isn't real. You were just in the right place at the right time. This happened to me recently as I was telling my own coach about something pretty great that had recently happened in my business, and she responded with, wow, that's great. Your efforts are really paying off. I was a little surprised and said, no, I don't think I did this. I don't think it was my efforts that created this. So we backtracked to find out how the result was created. And of course, it was because of groundwork I had laid months earlier, but my brain told me that because I hadn't directly worked on it in the week leading up to the good news, I didn't deserve any credit for the result. So if this sounds familiar to yourself at all, I'm wondering what lies about yourself you believe that have you deflecting compliments or praise or recognition. If your brain is willing to offer you lies that you didn't do this, or you didn't deserve this, or it's not that big of a deal, could you also offer yourself alternate statements like, look at this amazing accomplishment I just created, or I deserve everything that's coming to me and more, or I am 100% worthy and 100% lovable all the time, and nothing can change that. Someone might hear those last three statements and think, I would never think those things about myself. Those seem extreme and partly untrue. My question to you is, if you are willing to believe the lie that you don't deserve something or haven't created anything worthwhile, why not give equal consideration to the lie that you do deserve it and have created something amazing? Sometimes I catch myself declining opportunities because I tell myself the lie that I like things a certain way. And since this opportunity or situation doesn't meet those certain preferences that I have, I probably won't like it. What? Didn't we all learn as kids that you won't know unless you try it? So I have learned I really need to be on the lookout when I hear that lie. I like things a certain way. First of all, of course, we all do. We all have preferences. Saying I like things a certain way is basically like saying I'm a human, so I breathe. Okay, noted. But the lie comes in the unspoken part of that sentence, which is something along the lines of I won't like this. I really want to notice when I am predicting the future to myself, especially if I'm blocking myself from trying or learning or experiencing something new. The truth is, I really do like to try and learn and experience new things. My brain just tells me that I like things a certain way out of fear that there's a chance that I might not like something. And not liking it could be awkward or uncomfortable, and that would be a big deal. Okay, brain, that's not that big of a deal. I've lived through not liking things. It'll be okay. Speaking of unspoken parts of sentences, lies we tell ourselves can also be unspoken lies. What are the unspoken words at the end of a sentence that you don't finish? It's so tricky because you don't actually say the lie out loud or even just to yourself, but you're still thinking it and you're not refuting it. So therefore, you continue thinking the lie and believing it even without ever saying it. I see this so much with resistant thoughts. We get a resistant thought like, I could never, or that would be so bad. But we don't explore the unspoken part, the because. Why would that be so bad? Why could you never? When you really explore those unspoken sentence finishers, you realize so much. You find the unsubstantiated resistance, and that's when you can release it. Another sneaky category that fits in the lie discussion is exaggeration. I have been really curious about exaggeration lately, my own and my clients. I was listening to a client and she said, I've been trying to lose weight for a few months now and I haven't lost a single ounce. I love that exaggerations are so showy and obvious. Their extremeness is what calls attention to them so we can dig in to see what we are believing. When the client exaggerated and used the measurement of ounce, instead of just saying, I haven't lost any weight, I thought, how does she know she hasn't lost a single ounce? Really? Is her scale that calibrated down to ounces? And I highly doubt that anyone could weigh themselves daily for a few months and not see fluctuations on the scale, both up and down. And certainly someone's weight could go down by an ounce, even if they were actively trying to gain weight. So I call that exaggeration a lie. The truth is probably more like her weight has fluctuated up and down the past few months, and maybe on average it's right around the same weight as when she started, and she expected it to be much lower by now. She's translating that whole experience into the lie that she hasn't lost a single ounce, which really shuts down any optimism or belief. Not very helpful. Another client said she's always doubted herself. That's been her pattern forever. Again, my ears perked up with that exaggeration. I thought, forever? Like since you were born? You were a self-doubting baby? And then, of course, I knew it couldn't be true. Otherwise, she would have never learned to walk or tie shoes or pour a glass of water. If self-doubt was her pattern forever, she never would have been willing to try and fail at those things. The 5-year-old version of her never would have believed she could master writing her own name or learning the alphabet. So I call that exaggeration a lie too. Maybe a more accurate version of her statement would be to say, in recent years, I've noticed I've doubted myself in this situation and in that situation. Instead of saying self-doubt has been my pattern forever. Do you hear how different those two thoughts sound? That's been my pattern forever implies that's how it is. It's final. There's no changing it. I'm powerless. And I've noticed I've doubted myself in this situation and that situation implies that in some situations I've doubted myself. It leaves wiggle room for me to decide if I will doubt myself in this situation or maybe I don't have to. If I'm going to believe lies and exaggeration without question anyhow, why not choose really amazing lies to believe without question? What about if I believe these lies instead? I can do whatever I want. I am amazing at this. I love this. It's exactly what I want. Can you imagine believing you can do whatever you want instead of believing you have to do things you don't want to do? Or instead of believing you won't be able to do what you do want to do? Or can you imagine believing that you will be amazing at something you are trying, or something you haven't mastered yet, or something you always lied to yourself about before by saying you weren't good at it? I am pointing out all these lies and exaggerations to you with the hopes that if you hear these lies, or your own lies that might be different from mine, you will notice them and recognize them. Then, instead of letting them continue on autopilot, or instead of continuing to believe them without examination, you can really bring the lies into the light and poke and prod around. If you ignore or dismiss the lies, you just push them away and they stay intact. If you examine and explore them, you get to decide what you want to do with the lies. So let's revisit the 3 questions I asked at the beginning of this episode. Are you a liar? Do you tell lies? Do you believe some lies? Maybe now you're recognizing some lies you tell yourself and believe. And my favorite thing to offer coaching clients and podcast listeners is awareness. So hopefully this episode and my examples have brought some awareness to you about what you've been telling yourself and what you've been believing. According to Dan Ariely, the author of The Honest Truth About Dishonesty, Everybody has the capacity to be dishonest, and almost everybody cheats just by a little. And I'm taking his message a little out of context here, but I just want to point out that if it is human nature to lie, and we regularly lie to ourselves, why not choose fun, amazing, helpful lies to believe about ourselves and our lives? Why not choose lies to tell ourselves that get us closer to what we want? And then when we get what we want, because we believed those lies, which were actually just our thoughts, we won't have been lying after all. Of course, I am curious what you lie to yourself about. So please share with me either privately in an email to hi@bexby.org or in the show notes for this episode at bexby.org/liesitell. If you're one of my favorite people, meaning you're on my email list, I have sent you a lighthearted fill-in-the-blank and true and false quiz. Use it to check in with yourself to see if you are believing the lies I shared today, or double-check to see what lies you tell yourself. If you're not on my email list yet, make sure you join at bexby.org/favorites so you will always get reminded of each week's new podcast episode. And if you're not sure if you're on my list, double check your spam, your junk, and your trash folders in your inbox. I have heard from a few of you that you're not getting my emails and they might have wandered into one of those folders by mistake. Next week, we will be talking about gratitude. I can't wait to tell you about another one of my favorite topics. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week, and I will talk to you next Friday. This has been Release Your Resistance. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, think about someone who you know who would love this episode and share it with them. There should be a share button on your app if you're listening to this on your phone. If you'd like to continue this conversation one-on-one or in real time, come visit me on my site at bexby.org to see how we can work together.